It's January 2024. A new year has dawned, bringing with it the promise of fresh starts and new opportunities. The streets are strung with holiday lights, illuminating cities with a festive glow and a sense of optimism. But in the Middle East, an old conflict casts a long shadow, overshadowing the celebrations. The Israel-Palestine conflict has once again erupted into violence, shattering the fragile calm. This latest surge in violence has left a trail of devastation and despair, with countless lives disrupted. The latest chapter began in October 2023 with a surprise attack by Hamas. The world watched in shock as the events unfolded, highlighting the extent of the damage and human suffering. Months later, the fighting continues, defying numerous international efforts to broker a ceasefire. The complexities involve territorial disputes, political sovereignty, and the right to self-determination. Amidst the chaos, the human cost is starkly evident, with countless civilians injured and families displaced. Efforts continue on both sides, but the path to a lasting resolution seems as elusive as ever. The morning of October 6, 2023, dawned like any other in Israel. The sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the landscape. Families were preparing for the Sabbath, a day of rest and reflection, unaware that their lives were about to be irrevocably changed. Across the border in Gaza, Hamas militants were preparing for an operation months in the making. Shortly after dawn, Hamas launched a multi-pronged assault on Israel, targeting civilians and military installations alike. Gunmen infiltrated Israeli towns, indiscriminately shooting at residents and taking hostages. Simultaneously, a barrage of rockets rained down on Israeli cities, sowing terror and chaos. The attacks, which Hamas dubbed Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, caught Israel off guard. The scale and audacity of the operation shocked the nation and its allies. News outlets around the world broadcast the unfolding tragedy. Images of the carnage served as a stark reminder of the human cost of this conflict. Israel, reeling from the attack, vowed a swift and decisive response. Leaders addressed the nation, promising to bring those responsible to justice. The Israel Defense Forces launched a counteroffensive targeting Hamas positions in Gaza. The fighting quickly escalated, with both sides exchanging heavy fire. The October 2023 attacks marked a turning point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The attack exposed the vulnerabilities of both sides and deepened the already profound mistrust that has plagued the region for decades. As the fighting raged on, the international community scrambled to broker a ceasefire. Diplomats from the United States, Egypt, and other countries engaged in frantic shuttle diplomacy, hoping to persuade both sides to lay down their arms. Several ceasefire agreements were proposed, offering a glimmer of hope that the bloodshed could be stopped. However, these agreements quickly unraveled, with both sides accusing the other of violating the terms. Israel, demanding guarantees that Hamas would be disarmed and that its hostages would be returned, insisted on strict conditions for a ceasefire. Hamas, emboldened by its initial attack and seeking concessions from Israel, refused to back down. The repeated failure of ceasefire efforts underscored the deep mistrust between the two sides and the seemingly insurmountable obstacles to peace. Each failed attempt left a trail of broken promises and shattered hopes, further dimming the prospects for a negotiated settlement. Section 4. Israel's response. A delicate balance. Faced with an enemy determined to inflict maximum damage, Israel launched a multi-pronged military campaign aimed at degrading Hamas's capabilities and deterring future attacks. The IDF deployed ground troops along the Gaza border, imposing a strict blockade on the enclave. Israeli airstrikes targeted Hamas military installations, weapons depots, and command centers. The IDF also used artillery and naval forces to strike targets within Gaza. Israel's military campaign has been marked by a delicate balance between crippling Hamas's military infrastructure and minimizing civilian casualties. The IDF has employed precision-guided munitions and provided advance warnings to civilians in targeted areas. However, the nature of urban warfare, with Hamas fighters often embedded within civilian populations, has made it impossible to avoid civilian casualties entirely. The presence of Hamas tunnels and rocket launchers in densely populated areas has further complicated Israel's efforts to target military objectives without harming innocent civilians. Section 5. Gaza's agony. A humanitarian crisis unfolds. The situation in Gaza has reached a critical point, with the region facing unprecedented levels of suffering and hardship. The fighting in Gaza has had a devastating impact on the civilian population. Families have been torn apart, homes destroyed, and lives shattered. The densely populated enclave, already grappling with poverty, unemployment, and a crumbling infrastructure, has been plunged into a humanitarian crisis. The lack of resources and opportunities has only exacerbated the dire situation. Hospitals, overwhelmed with casualties, struggle to cope with the influx of wounded. Medical staff are working around the clock, often without adequate supplies or equipment. Medical supplies are running low, and the constant threat of airstrikes makes it dangerous for medical personnel to reach those in need. The healthcare system is on the brink of collapse. The blockade has severely restricted the flow of essential goods, including food, water, and fuel, into Gaza. This has led to widespread shortages and increased suffering among the population. The shortage of basic necessities has created desperate conditions for many families who are struggling to survive. Children are particularly vulnerable, facing malnutrition and a lack of clean water. International aid organizations have been working tirelessly to provide assistance to the people of Gaza, but their efforts have been hampered by the ongoing fighting and the restrictions imposed by Israel. Despite these challenges, aid workers continue to risk their lives to deliver much-needed relief. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains dire, with millions of civilians caught in the crossfire of a conflict not of their making. The international community must act swiftly to address this crisis and provide the necessary support to alleviate the suffering of the people of Gaza. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world's ongoing conflicts. If you found our insights valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest developments. Together, we can deepen our understanding of the challenges facing our world. Stay informed, stay engaged. This is Edge of Conflict.